righty. Sounds good. Tell you what, this card is not worth $60.
$80 with tax.
80? There's tax?
Yeah, there's tax on it.
I don't ever pay attention. I just click the button. That's worse. That's worse. And let's.
Welcome to the UFC Live Before Lock show right here on Awesemo.com. I am Jason Floyd. We'll be here for the next hour to break down UFC 262, which of course goes down tonight in front of a full house there in Houston, Texas. Of course, I am not joined by the fighter, Pete Rogers Jr. I'm just going to call him the nickname, The Process, because all I know is when I wake up early in the morning and I come online, the first thing I see is this guy's face. What is up, Josh? I think that nickname should just be The Process from this point forward.
Yeah, I have a ton in common with Joel Embiid, so that seems perfectly reasonable. Just super, super similar. I can be the fighter too. I can't be the fighter. I would get destroyed. It would be really, really bad. I'm excited to talk shop here. This is a fun card. It's more of a good fighter card than like a name value card. And that sort of slips through the cracks sometimes. So I'm excited to chop it up a little bit. I've been watching fights all day.
I will tell you, because you bring something a little different than what me and Pete bring, where you bring that analytical side to the equation where I'm just sitting there, I'm paying attention to, hey, what's this, the fighter's abilities, but you bring that analytical side of this and in terms of your roster construction, because there are some fights in this card that I'm like, we got to have the main event. You might as well just sit there and go, give me 100% of the main event. Split your exposure 50-50. Someone's getting stopped in the main event. Most likely I would be shocked if the main event's not optimal. Now, there are some fights that I have very little interest, and I made sure when I was setting my lineups today to set my exposures to a low level. Those matchups, I'll tell you, Kaylin Chookagian, Viviane Araújo, don't like it in terms of a DFS fight. Unless you think that Chookagian is going to get some takedowns, maybe a knockdown, I just don't see how she's optimal. Araújo, I think her path to victory is taking the fight to the ground. Other fights that I'm like, don't have a ton of interest in, Gina Mazzani and Priscilla Cachoeira. There's a reason some people have nicknamed her Catch a Beating. But I do understand why people want to go Gina Mazzani. Your thought process has got to be, she's going to go get multiple takedowns, but boy, you better hope this does not stay on the feet, because if it stays on the feet, we could have a major upset there. So let me talk about what is your process today for this roster construction.
So if I'm being perfectly honest, this will be a just absolute perfect sell job for the website. I am relying on everything that we have to offer at Awesemo.com. Our top fighters tool is everything to me. We're talking projections, ownership, odds of just simply winning the fight or winning by knockout. Alex has a couple other metrics that I like to look at, including pace. So sort of the expectation of fantasy points that are going to be accrued on a per minute basis. But where I really it drives everything that I'm doing, top 6 percentage, odds of scoring more than 100 fantasy points. That drives a lot of the construction of my lineups, using those top 6 odds, weighted for salary, of course, in conjunction with the ownership, because I'm in a fairly large contest. There's north of 30,000 entries. So I have to be at least a little bit aware of ownership, and I have to take some chances on low owned fighters in situations where they are not likely to win all that frequently. But you have to be there sometimes, because if you want to win and you don't want to chop with 60 different people, it's your only path there. So I am relying solely on the tools at Awesemo.com today.
Yeah, there is. I mean, the Gina Mazzani one, like, I see the path to her being optimal, but the path to her being optimal is takedown. She's got to get multiple takedowns. I think the potential for a stoppage could be there, but it comes on the ground. But to give the other side of the equation there, if Priscilla Cachoeira is going to win, she's going to win by knockout. I mean, I saw an article on one of the MMA sites within the last, 24 hours where basically she's essentially saying, come on, Gina, let's have a striking matchup because, well, she knows what's about to happen. She knows that the potential of her going to Takedown City is going to happen. But I'll tell you, in terms of some of these 9K options, I'm not in love with the 9K option. The only one I would tell you that I'm actually, I would say, kind of in love with is Chris Sociagos, because I think he's taken Sean Soriano to Takedown City. Obviously, it's been some time since Sean's been in the UFC, but when he was in the UFC, that was the path everyone took, was just taking him straight to the ground.
Which is crazy because he does have a wrestling background, but does not seem to work very well for Soriano. I have not gotten to a ton of Giagos yet. I don't have any qualms with him. It just hasn't shook out there because I am unfortunately higher on Gina. And I don't love the way that the numbers look. I do think that as we're talking, I bring Gina down slightly, bring Giagos up a little bit more because Shevchenko to me is only a play because of the ridiculously low ownership, coming in basically half of Giagos and more than half of Mazzani. So I like Shevchenko in large field GPPs just because of that. But I do think she is the third best option of the 9Ks.
Of course, we do have a nice little present over at Awesemo.com today. MMA Fighter Rankings is free premium data on the site, so you got to check out that to help develop your lineups. Also free on the site, NBA Player Rankings, as we are the eve of the regular season coming to an end. MLB Top Stacks and NHL Main Slate Top Stacks is free, of course. Also, if you're not subscribed to Awesemo, be sure to subscribe to the channel here. MLB Live Before Lock will be coming up after us, so of course, ton of great programming for you each and every day. So be sure to check out that and be sure to hit that like button. Takedown City is something we always talk about, and it's so huge in terms of MMA DFS, of finding those fighters. Mike Grundy, I think, is one of those guys that you have to have circled, because if he's winning that fight, he is going to be taking down Lando Venata. There's, it's kind of like the Mazzani Cachoeira fight. If Lando Venata wins, it's because the fight stays on the feet, and likely it's a high volume striking matchup, or he knocks him out at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the trickier fights on the card for me. And I'm trying to be relatively neutral because it's two very distinctly different styles. Grundy could win this fight with 3 takedowns, grind him out for 15 minutes and call it a day. Venata could keep it on the feet. I don't know how easy that's going to go, but hypothetically speaking, Venata keeps it on the feet, just strikes up a storm. Grundy can't keep up with it. Those are the two paths. My thought process is that I think that favors Grundy, but from a DFS perspective, given the salaries, I am basically flat neutral to those guys, 20% to both. I just hope that fight goes by the wayside. And that's exactly where their ownership is on DraftKings right now. To me, that is the most neutral fight, the hardest one to actually I can't imagine having a side of that fight that you feel super confident in from a DFS perspective right now. Same salaries, same ownership, basically same projection, same odds. It's really, really tricky.
And that's one of the two fights where the betting public has completely changed that line, where Venata was plus 145. I know when I was looking earlier, and of course, the line was kind of all over the place depending on what sports book you went to. I saw him at, a lot of places at minus 110. Another one, Shevchenko, she opened at minus 195. That's now minus 115. The betting public has been all over Andrea Lee. And that's something I always talk about, is you have to pay attention to the betting line, the betting movement, and see, especially look at where the line opened at and then where the betting public went. One of the big things I always look at is when that line came out, did the sharps just hammer it to say the line maker got this line wrong right from the start? So that's one of those things. And especially as the week goes on, I mean, there was, some fighters. There was another fight that really stuck out to me where we've seen kind of a notable line change. And maybe it was a pick. No, it was a Grundy fight. Because he's now plus money. So, yeah. But, to me, I look at that fight, the Jordan Wright, Jamie Pickett fight, which is essentially a pick'em fight. To me, I think the Wright Pickett fight's going to be optimal. I don't trust either one of these guys. I think Pickett's got the better chin, but the fight is, especially 8,100 a piece on DraftKings. It's going to be hard if that fight ends in a finish. That is not optimal.
Well, that goes pretty well for me, considering I have 100% of pick it right. So that is where I'm going. Of the two, there are two fights that I am 100% exposed to: the main event and pick it right. So I would be very, very happy if one of those fighters, well, two of those fighters, I guess, one from each, is in the optimal, because that would set me up pretty well, because I will have a lot of those combinations. That's for sure. To me, they're pretty clearly the two best options, given Wright's history, just finish upon finish upon finish. Pickett as well. Didn't go his way the last time out, but representing for Wilmington. That's why I'm wearing some Wilmington teal today.
So I'll tell you, when I did the strategy show on Thursday, I picked Tony Ferguson to win. I'm okay. That is one of two fights I have flip-flopped on that I just keep going back and forth of. And I think the co-main event, I just don't want a ton of exposure on either side of that one. The Ferguson aspect is, you know, I kind of chuckle when he says he's in the prime of his career. I'm like, dude, you're 37 years old at lightweight. That's not exactly what people call the prime of your career. Dariush, but then I just, every time I watch Dariush fight, I'm like, chins up. He finds himself into brawls. Yeah. Like, it would shock me if this fight's optimal, but I don't feel great taking either side of this equation.
I'm very, very nervous about this fight. And obviously, we're going to learn a lot about Tony Ferguson here, because if he wins this fight, everything that you saw previous, you wipe away the Gaethje beating, you wipe away the Oliveira beating, and you think that he is, I don't want to say back, because beating Beneil Dariush is a lot different than beating Justin Gaethje, beating potentially the light heavyweight champ. If you just wait an hour after the end of that one, or, you know, getting in there with someone like Dustin Poirier, there's a bigger step to take after that. But a win here is massive, but a loss also takes a little bit of shine off of that beating from Gaethje, and takes a little bit of shine off of that beating from Charles Oliveira. Ferguson dictates a lot of the light heavyweight division, and a lot of it has nothing to do with even the rest of this card. It changes the outlook of past experiences, which is kind of crazy. I like him more right now at 5:12 p.m. than I did when I woke up this morning. Watched a little bit more of Dariush. I think it fits Ferguson as long as he just stays awake, which generally speaking happens.
Yeah, I will tell you, it's one of these things of, if Tony Ferguson loses tonight, I would not be shocked if it's his last UFC fight.
Oh yeah, he's going to be fighting Ben Henderson in Bellator in no time flat.
Oh, I'm telling you this right now. Michael Chandler wins tonight. Over under 5 minutes from the Patricio Pitbull / Scott Coker tweet that the best lightweight in the world's in Bellator.
I mean, it'll be immediate. It'll also still be wrong, but it will be immediate.
I think it's saved in their drafts on Twitter right now.
Yeah, might as well. You're just
ready to go.
Just schedule it. I mean, I think it doesn't really matter who wins this main event. You can post that tweet no matter what.
Look, I'm going to say this right now.
Here's a trivia question for you right now. The winner of the title fight tonight, true or false? The winner of the title fight tonight is an underdog in their next fight.
True. I think this lightweight title is about to get passed around a lot. I believe the people that are going to hold the title here for the next year or two, they're warming it up for Islam Makhachev.
Or they're keeping it warm for Habib.
Well, yeah, because retirements don't exist in MMA.
Well, it depends who's the champ. The retirement, I think, exists if Charles Oliveira is the champ, because there's not going to be a ton of money in Charles Oliveira Khabib fights. I mean, there should be. Like, Oliveira's awesome, but there's a lot more money in it if it's Chandler. If Chandler goes on a run, if they both drop that fight to, I don't know, say Conor McGregor in 6 months to a year, there's money to be out there, and money talks, but the money isn't coming from this particular main event. At least I don't think it is, unless Chandler just starts winning and winning and winning. And I don't know if that's going to happen.
This is the crazy thing about the main event, is the fact of, from 2010 to 2017, Charles Oliveira was 10-8 with 1 no contest. I believe had been finished in 7 of those 8 losses. Michael Chandler 2 years ago got knocked out by Patricio Pitbull to lose the Bellator featherweight title. It is crazy that both these guys have got here. Now, Charles Oliveira, a lot of that was at 45. struggled to make 45. He's gone up to 55. It's insane to see the trajectory of both these guys. Of Michael Chandler, this guy's been in the UFC, what, 6 months since he signed? And he's already in a title fight just because he's basically the guy in the division's like, I will fight whoever you want me to.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think we would all agree that this should be Justin Gaethje and Michael Chandler's spot. It would just make a lot more sense. Chandler's last 3 wins, Dan Hooker, which obviously spectacular way to make a debut, but knocking out Benson Henderson and whatever a Sydney Outlaw is not the path to a UFC lightweight title fight. It just isn't. It should just be Gaethje. And then we look at Oliveira, who obviously, like, as you were talking about, it was not looking great in like late 2017, but the losses aren't coming to randos here. Felder, Lamas, Pettis, Holloway, Frankie Edgar, Cub Swanson, Cerrone, Jim Miller. Like, these aren't, he's not losing to guys that are just preposterous losses. Then he goes on a bit of a run, but what does that run really look like? Starting it off with Clay Guida, sure. Giagos, welcome to this card. 2018 Jim Miller is not exactly the same Jim Miller. David Tamer, Nick Lentz, Jared Gordon, the Kevin Lee sub, awesome. And then we're going to find out a lot about whether or not that Tony Ferguson win means a lot just before the main event. These guys are both entering this main event in really weird spots.
Yeah, it's if Beneil Dariush wins the co-main event, I think it does change the narrative of the main event just a little bit. By the way, I mentioned this question in Slack from Morgan. Says, how big of an impact do you think the sold out stadium has on the pace of some of these fights, if any? I will tell you. So when I talked to Christos Giagos about, 2.5 weeks ago, it was actually when he was supposed to take on Joel Alvarez. He basically mentioned that he believes it does change the fights. That it's just that environment. And we saw it in Jacksonville last month. Those, you could just tell right from the first fight of the night, because first off, there was actually a ton of people in the audience when the first fight of the night starts, which anyone who's ever gone to a UFC pay-per-view in Vegas, particularly, that's not the case. There may be 1,000 people in the building when the first fight starts. Maybe.
It's as if there was COVID forever for like the early prelims.
Yeah. The people do not show up to the early prelims in Vegas. The only people that show up are the hardcore fans.
Yep, 100%.
People in Vegas don't start rolling in until about the last prelim, and maybe not even 9:55. They're rolling in from the casino floor. I guess Perry's about to start. We better get inside the building.
Like, I think for someone like Tony Ferguson, it matters a lot. Now, I don't think it matters to him because he will fight people in silence, and I don't think that matters because he's just a different level of crazy. But that sort of energy that he brings is going to be amplified. Guys that are used to fighting in co-main events and main events, I would imagine the swing is massive. If you're Beneil Dariush, you probably haven't been fighting, or it's probably not super vocal all the time.
And look, here's the other aspect of that's going to change some fighters in this one. The fact of the bonuses tonight are now $75,000 as opposed to $50,000, especially these fighters early on the card. I think you're going to see them go for it because they want that additional potential of $25,000. Well, before Uncle Sam gets his cut, because Uncle Sam always comes around. Uncle Sam always comes around.
It's basically like an extra 10 G's on top after you get taxes taken out. More of that's going to camp and everybody else that you need to pay for it. But even still, 10 G's is 10 G's.
Of course, you see there at the bottom of the screen of how you can try Awesemo MMA Platinum Weekly for $8.95. We do have a special going on right now at Awesemo.com for new Awesemo Plus users. Of course, the playoff season is here with the NBA and NHL. It's a great time to be a DFS player and pick up your first month of Awesemo Plus Platinum for 25% off when you use the promo code GOLDRUSH. That's promo code GOLDRUSH, one word, all caps. This includes full access to all the premium content tools at Awesemo.com, including player projections, ownership projections, our premium Slack channel, lineup builder, and so much more. So you see it right there on the screen. You got to use that promo code GOLDRUSH. That's all caps, one word. Of course, NBA play-in tournament is here. I'm just telling you, Josh, we're both big NBA people.
Yes.
If we have Lakers Warriors, that ends up being the first play-in game. I want to be in the suite with TV execs and Adam Silver to see how much they're sweating, because they are sweating if they don't have LeBron in the playoffs.
Yeah. God. Look, if the Lakers are healthy, they're not losing 2 games in the play-in. It's just It's just not happening. They're not losing back-to-back elimination games. Only way that's happening is if LeBron James isn't there. So I assume, based on his health earlier today, that they're going to be fine. And more than anything, I just hate this stupid tournament. They're 41-30. They should not be in danger of losing out and not being able to make the playoffs. That's preposterous. Stop rewarding bad teams with extra stuff.
It's not going anywhere, Josh, because they're going to make a ton of money on TV revenue, on advertising. This thing ain't going anywhere. And I'll tell you this right now. If I'm in the East, last team I want to see is the Washington Wizards.
Oh God, I can't do this right now. I don't want to derail an MMA show with my hatred of the Washington Wizards and in particular Russell Westbrook. It's not going to go well. I would love to see them because I don't think they're any good.
Yeah, 12,800 DK last night. Oof, still played it though.
I mean, look, I don't want to see the Wizards. I don't want to see the Wizards if I'm the Celtics, the Hornets, or the Pacers, because those teams are probably going to get beat. I will happily see the Wizards if I'm the Sixers or the Nets, because you are going to have a pretty easy time of it.
Yeah. I'm a big NBA guy. But let's get into some listener questions. Of course, you can hit those up in our Slack channel. Also, you can hit that up right in YouTube. Nick saying, asking about the main event, saying he leans Oliveira, but Chandler looks shredded at the weigh-in. Chandler always looks shredded. First off, that's just how he's looked. The one thing I would say, the concern with Chandler is the wear and tear that he has taken. But I believe the stat is if Charles Oliveira wins tonight, he will have the most fights it's ever taken in the UFC to get to a title win. He beats out Bisping. People forget, even though he's really young.
Oh, he's been here
had
forever.
A crap ton of fights.
2010, Darren Elkins. That's nuts.
2010 was a long time ago.
Yeah, that's a long. Wow, more than Bisping. That's crazy. I guess that makes sense. Does that? So I guess Ferguson's interim title stops him because he probably had a ton of fights by the time he got that interim title fight too. I'm trying to think of who else it could possibly be.
UFC considers an interim title the real title.
Yeah,
they just like passing out gold belts.
Yeah, everybody, but their participation ribbons sometimes. Yeah, I guess that makes that's pretty crazy.
Yeah. Garrett mentions that Jamie Pickett is a huge smash tonight. Jordan Wright is so overrated. I mean, look, Jordan Wright did not fight anyone getting to the UFC. Did not fight anyone. Handpicked opponents. So let's just call it what it is. All you got to do is go on Tapology and look at his strength of schedule. But this is one of those fights where, Jamie Pickett on the other side, I think Jamie Pickett is the right side to play in it. But I think you do have to, like you mentioned this at the beginning of the show, when you're playing in these massive fields, you've got to put lineups in there that are going to have, fighters that you may not think are going to win. Like I have lineups with Priscilla Cachoeira. I don't think she's going to win, but I've got to do things to separate myself from the rest of the field.
Yeah, look, if you're trying to finish at the top of a large field GPP, you're playing a bunch of people that don't feel great. We all know why like a $6,900 fighter is a $6,900 fighter. They're supposed to lose 85, 90% of the time. What makes the difference is when you have that 10% fighter in a lineup and you are now, instead of chopping with 50 people, you're chopping with 6. That's a gigantic difference in your expected value in your individual lineup. And that matters. And like for Wright and Pickett, I think they're both going under own. That's why I'm very heavy on both guys. And I like fighting out of Jackson Wink to me matters at least a little bit in comparison for Pickett. Now, full caveat here. Pickett is a Wilmington guy. I live in Wilmington. I've lived here for 12 years. So I have my allegiances. I'm representing at least a little bit. I never know. Maybe I'm going to bump into him at the grocery store. I don't want it to be a problem if he ever finds out that I have been speaking about him. This is out there. This is public information. So I'm basically a coin flip on that fight, but I do think it's necessary to have.
Yeah, there's sometimes here in Tampa, I do run into some of the Tampa fighters and always kind of wonder whether or not they've got her when I said whether I like that. Blackbird 15 over in Slack says, is it okay to play Oliveira and Chandler in FanDuel cash? My simple answer to that is no. I'm not a stack in MMA unless it's 9 fights or less. And the problem with that fight is the likelihood that fight's going to end in 15 minutes or less, I believe is likely. And so in terms of cash, I guess the question more is how is it viable to stack that? I don't. It's just something I couldn't recommend.
That was FanDuel, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. But given those salaries, I don't think that it is. That's $39. That's a lot. For a fight that I don't really think has that path to back and forth 5-round war. I'll tell you what, I'd be happy to see it though.
That's like my biggest complaint about FanDuel is their pricing on main events, because if you want, you don't get value in the underdog fighter. There's no value there. Like you can't, I mean, there's like 7,500 of Michael Chandler is a great value on DraftKings. Yeah. Look, 8,700 is a great price for Charles Oliveira. Like we've talked about, you got to have that fight. Morgan says, is Jacare getting overlooked? Could dominate this fight from start to finish from his skill level. Then Jason Hoffman saying, any confidence in Muniz over Jacare? I don't. Do I think Jacare is being overlooked? No. This is a 41-year-old fighter. The Jacare of 6 years ago is not walking through the door. No. However, this is a tailor-made matchup for him. You're talking about two guys that look for the submission. I do like Jacare in the fight. I don't feel good about it. I think this is potentially Jacare via knockout.
I am underweight on both guys, at least on DraftKings. But, man, that Kevin Holland knockout is really, really tricky to parse at this age, because the fight before that, which obviously now is 18 months ago, in my opinion, he beat our current light heavyweight champion. I think he won that fight. And if you turn that into a green instead of a red on like any sort of list where you're highlighting wins and losses, one, he's not fighting Kevin Holland in his next fight. That's for sure. Jacare's outlook changes. But two, it just changes the perception in your head. You see that and you're like, oh, he's on 3 straight losses. And like the Hermanson fight did not go well for Jacare, but it went the full distance. More than half of the media cards that I looked at, and myself included, had Jacare beating Jan Blachowicz. And I think that is really interesting. The question is, what does Kevin Holland's knockout do to Jacare? That's what, basically 6 months ago? Is that long enough to recover for that at 41? There's no telling. Like, he could get his lights turned out immediately right now. And it's just like, oh, he's just done. Because it's not like he hasn't been in some wars.
I don't think he's the same fighter since he left Brazil and moved to Orlando. That to me is the biggest thing with Jacare. If Muniz is going to pull this off, I mean, look, he's going to make it a submission. Can he submit Jacare? I don't know. But I'm just not big on that. I got a super draft question about some good super draft plays. I will tell you, Mike Grundy is one of those I like. He's a 1.15 multiplier, then a 1.75 as champion. The other ones that I would look at in terms of it, I mean, we mentioned about the main event. That's one. Kevin Aguilar, 1.25 multiplier. It's another one if you do want to play over there on Super Draft.
You probably don't, though. Super Draft can suck it. Monkey Knife Fight for life, baby.
Of course, Monkey Knife Fight is a sponsor of this show. I would tell you, the one thing I love about Monkey Knife Fight, I go in there in terms of their more or less contest looking. And there was a couple that I really liked in terms of this one. Of course, we use that promo code Awesemo, get instant first match deposit up to $100. There's some ones in there that I think you have to look at today. Aguilar and Tucker Lutz was one of those fights that I was looking at. The Andrea Lee and Antonia Shevchenko was another fight that I was looking at as well. There are ways, if you look at that, when I'm playing on Monkey Knife Fight, I'm more playing significant strikes than the fantasy points game. But those are ones that you have to look at, especially the ones I do look at is if I think there's going to be wrestling dominated and we're not going to have a ton of significant strikes.
Yeah, that's the main event one is tricky because they're basically right around 40 significant strikes. And oh man, like if Chandler lands 40 plus significant strikes, I feel like this is going pretty well for Chandler, and he doesn't ever get that opportunity. Like it's under that number because Charles Oliveira is already asleep. Charles Oliveira landing north of 40 though. I do like that number on Monkey Knife Fight.
Yeah, there was, in what I do tend to do when we're talking about player props is I think we magically just want to hit more I'm also looking at, okay, which are the ones I think just can go less on.
Yeah.
That main event is very tricky because it's a fight that could end early, or if you want to go more on both of those guys, I think you're just hoping that it gets to the third round.
Yeah. And odds are that it goes, it's under 1.5, correct? That's the pivot point, if I remember correctly. Yeah, that one's tricky. Beneil Dariush landed more than 48 significant strikes on Tony Ferguson. Feels like it's going to happen.
Like, look, if you look at Andrea Lee's history, she's got, I think, I want to say it's 59.5 is her number. She's going to, if that's going 15 minutes, I would be surprised if it does not go over or more in that one. So be sure to check out Monkey Knife Fight, monkeyknifefight.com. Use that promo code Awesemo for instant first match deposit up to $100. As I always love going in there. I feel like I have a little advantage when it comes to MMA as opposed to when I'm playing some other sports, because I'll tell you, sometimes I sweat some stuff out there playing some other sports on Monkey Knife Fight. Wait till the very end of the game to see if it's going to come through here. We'll find some other questions here as we talk about it. Of course, you can leave any questions in our premium Slack account, also right there on YouTube. We haven't talked much about Shane Burgos and Edson Barboza, and I know I'm seeing a couple of questions about that one. This is one of those ones I've been going back and forth on. Thursday, I was on Barboza. My concern with Burgos is the later the fight goes, potentially does Barboza catch him with something, but I did find myself getting to more Burgos than I thought I would have.
Okay, so I think that Shane Burgos is pretty dramatically over-owned on DraftKings right now. We had it around 40 last time I looked. I think that's a bit too high. I am trying to force in at least a little bit more of Edson Barboza. And this is sort of in the vein of the Jacare discussion, because I think that this fight looks very, very different for Edson Barboza if his scorecards went the way that I believe they should have gone. In my opinion, he beat Dan Ige and he beat Paul Felder. If you go to MMA decisions, they track all of the media scoring. Barboza is basically a clean sweep in the fight against Dan Ige, and he's basically a clean sweep against Paul Felder as well. So to think how much differently this fight would look, both from I would assume from a betting perspective and just from a mental perspective, if Edson Barboza is coming in here on a 3-fight winning streak, it's dramatically different. Getting knocked out by Justin Gaethje back in March of 2019, I'm not going to fault anybody for that. Justin Gaethje can make every single person on this planet, maybe except for Khabib, go to sleep. Like that's it. That's like, to me, that's it. So I have no shame in that loss. And I actually think he's on a 3-fight win streak. So for him to be what we had previously, 16% ownership at 7,800, I think that he's one of the best plays of the day in a large field GPP. I think he's getting dramatically underrepresented.
One thing I'll mention, because I saw this question over on YouTube, also in our Slack account, about Rogerio Bontorin missing weight yesterday, if it affects my pick in the fight. Yes, it does, because here's what concerns me, is that he replaced Alex Perez. He took this fight about 3 weeks ago. So these are two flyweights. The fight is at bantamweight. It was never at flyweight. So him missing weight is a extreme concern to me. Matt Schnell is somebody I feel like he's one of these fighters I have a tough time really getting a gauge on and picking him correctly. Before the weigh-ins, I was higher on Rogerio here because I like the potential of a knockout. But after seeing the weigh-ins, how he looked, kind of knowing a little bit of the backstory here of how long he's had to prepare, you're going up a weight class, you still miss weight. It's a concern for me. So I did limit my exposure to him.
Yeah, I mean, I think he needs an early finish. Otherwise, I don't think the gas tank is going to be there. So I am very, very light on Bontorin, 2xing right now on Schnell. I just think, given the weight issues, given the short notice, I don't think that 8,900 is all that crazy. Grades out pretty well in our odds of being a top 6 fighter. So I share the exact same concerns as you.
I know we have a lot of people that watch us that are single entry players. They're not multi-line entry players. In terms of when I was building my single entry lineups, I will tell you, typically more times than not, I'm finding that high-end option that I say I'm building my lineup around. However, I went straight to scroll all the way down to the bottom and I clicked Andrea Lee. She's my pump play today. I'm not big on Shevchenko. I don't necessarily quite see the path to Shevchenko potentially being optimal there. Look, it's not a fight where if Andrea Lee wins, I'm expecting 100 points. I think I'm being realistic about it. In a win, I'm saying 70 points. I'm just kind of being realistic about that aspect. But then after that, it was like, okay, then I kind of went to the mid-range. Who in that mid-range did I want to put in there? And then who in the top end? I just kind of developed my lineup that way. But also I'm like, how can I be different? Look, if you want to put an Andrew Lee in your lineup and maybe you want to go with another underdog that maybe people aren't thinking about, maybe it's Viviane Araujo, you are completely going to separate yourself from the field.
Yeah. So Lee is interesting because she's unquestionably either the top or second best cash game play today on DraftKings. She shouldn't be 7K based on the line movement. She would be 73, 74 if they were able to just change the salaries right now based on where the lines are. So you are getting that added value right out of the gate. So to me, as a cash option, I think that she is a no-brainer. In a large field GPP, I immediately go the opposite direction. I have more Shevchenko now than Lee, and that is only because of the nature of the contest that I am entering. But Andrea Lee, very clearly one of the top plays because she's simply just not priced correctly for the odds of that fight.
By the way, just so everyone does note, the lock is 6:30 p.m. Eastern time. That's when the early prelims will start here. Of course, we'll be here for about another 20 minutes leading you up to MLB Live Before Lock. Of course, one of the things I love as a fight ends, I love to see those screen grabs of big wins. Of course, you can get into that Awesemo Hall of Fame. Of course, you got to be rocking that Awesemo avatar right there on your DFS profile and placing the top 3 of a contest of over 5,000 entries. Tweet those wins. So at Awesemo HOF on Twitter. Win a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. As you can see it right there on the screen. Some of the winners will get in there. The one, Peter going there 156K over NBA. All single bullets too. That was the thing when I saw that screenshot. I'm like, all right, man. Love those single bullet entries. Man, that's
So I woke up to that tweet being tagged in it. That is not his first big win in like the past 2 weeks. I believe he's got another 100K like in May, if I'm remembering correctly. Dude's been printing money as of late. He's the new Gene Kim.
Yeah, it's crazy. Devin getting some wins there, of course. So be sure to download that Awesemo profile pic, awesemo.com/avatar. Tweet your wins to at Awesemo HOF and win a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum when you place in the top 3 of a contest of over 5,000 entries. There you see an MLB contest there of winning 100,000, going with Tyler Glass now of the Rays there. So congratulations to you there. And I look forward to seeing those screenshots once tonight's fights are over. Bill Astley goes Grundy with takedowns and control time or Aguilar with a possible knockout for DraftKings GPP. I'm going to go give me the takedown artist and control time over a potential knockout, which I do think if Aguilar gets the knockout, it will be late, not early.
So I have 22% Mike Grundy and 21% Kevin Aguilar. So I don't exactly have a gigantic lean on either one of those guys. I will say this. There are only 2 people on this card that I do not have. Caitlin Chukagian is one of them. Tucker Lutz is the second. So in that regard, I'm leaning more towards Aguilar. But again, like that Lando Venata Grundy fight is a pure coin flip question mark to me. I don't really know what to do. I do like the fact that Aguilar is less owned than Grundy. So depending on how big of a contest you're in, I think that could at least help you be just a hair, if it's 2 less dupes potentially, if it's large field stuff.
So let me, I just pulled up her DraftKings Kayla Chukagian, which, look, if you want to get some leverage on the field, put Kayla Chukagian in your lineup. I'm not recommending it because I think I'm playing like 15% Caitlin Chukagian. Very, very little bit. So, but here are her DraftKings scores in wins: 72.7, 57.8, 54.8, 68, 66.4, 118.7, and 57.7.
I am going to comfortably not have her. I got a flat 0. I have 3% of Viviana Rougeau. So as far as I'm concerned, I hope literally nothing happens in that fight. And there is likely to be 44% total ownership there. So that's just however many lineups that I don't have to worry about after that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just she's not in terms of DFS. Now, if you think that she's going to go a takedown route and score some takedowns that way, okay. But just when you look at her history, it's just, especially 8,800, it's not a good price. Like, to me, it's a fight that, like, in a single entry situation, it's a pass for me on the fight. But if you said, Jason, you got to play a side, I would just take a Rougeau and just hope that she can get the fight to the ground.
Yeah, the saving grace for Chookagian would be gets a takedown or two in the first round, throws, I don't know, like throws, I mean, who the hell knows what she's going to land? Probably not a lot. Throws 70 significant strikes, and Viviana Rougeau like blows out her knee at the 4-minute 59-second mark. So she gets the first round finish too. Like, that's, to me, that's it. She's got to fall into a finish that she didn't earn.
This will be an interesting question I think people might want to know about, of course, with your process of, do you simulate MMA like you do NBA? I'm pretty sure I know the answer.
So the answer is normally yes. It's not yes for today. I played NBA today, so I didn't have enough time to run as much stuff as I wanted to. So I am today, it's fully based on everything we have on the website. Top 6 odds of scoring north of 100 fantasy points. Everything that we have on the website is the only input that I use today. But normally, yes. Yeah,
that's, I mean, I look there, you know, my first thing is I look at our projections, and then, you know, then I'm looking at ownership. Then I'm looking at that top fire tool. I'm looking at top 6 percentage, you know, is who could potentially be in there. You mentioned that the pace is another one that you definitely got to change out to. Who scores more in a win, Beneil Dariush or Shane Burgos? Dariush. Tony's very hittable.
Yeah, it's probably Dariush. I think it's Dariush because if Dariush wins, I assume it's because we're seeing the end of Tony Ferguson and Dariush ran through him.
Yeah.
Whereas I think Burgos can win, and this could just be like a close fight. You know, Barboza lands a bunch of leg kicks. It gets kind of ugly and slow in the third. So yeah, Dariush for me.
Yeah, I would more go with the Dariush. Isaac, he mentioned a point that I know Pete brought up about the day of show in the first fight of the night is in 50% of the optimal lineups. It was a note of like the past couple months of the first fight. To me, I'm going to have a ton of Christos Giagos because of the takedown abilities. Now, a concern with Christos Giagos is the cardio, him wearing down, you know, late second, early third round. If Sean Soriano wins, it's going to be up on the feet, but the first fight tonight, I believe, is a fight that you have to have. You have to kind of circle and say, okay, I've got to have good ownership, exposure to that one.
I have no real like dog in that fight at this point in time. I'm a little bit lighter than the field on Giagos. I'm basically neutral to the field on Sean Soriano. I don't have a total lean. Giagos being 9,100 is giving me a little bit of pause given his ownership. If his ownership were a couple points lower, I would probably have quite a bit more, but for right now, I'm basically running neutral.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's takedowns control MMA DFS. And if he has the ability to score 5, 6, 7 takedowns and he wins, even if it's in a decision, to me, it's going to be hard for him not to be optimal.
By the way, and just to put this out there, obviously salaries matter in this case and each individual fight matters. But if we're just treating this neutrally, there are 12 fights on this card. Every single fight has a 50% chance of being in the optimal today. So I don't look too much into that data because this is just for the most part, just a math problem. Now, obviously, depending on what those fights are, that will swing a little bit on the individual basis. But if you want to just treat it generically, 6 fighters have to be in there. You assume that it's going to be 6 winners. That's half of the fights. So we're looking at 50% by default, not because it's any sort of like first fight bias or anything like that. And I know you generally hate it.
I do generally hate the first fight of the night. I generally hate it. It's one of those fights. it can really get your night off to a really bad start if it doesn't go your way. But I probably have way too much Christosiakos. Pete was on Sean Soriano. He thinks Soriano's going to be able to stop the takedowns, which over on the FanDuel side of the equation, if you do think that's the case is going to happen, Sean Soriano is a good play over on FanDuel. Like I mentioned this in Slack earlier, while I don't like Chukagian over on DraftKings, I don't mind her on FanDuel because I think Araujo is going to be going for takedowns. If she can stop those, she can rack up some points. Like one of the examples I bring up was John Dotson. When he took on Mma Dfs, he lost, but he stopped, I believe it was 18 takedowns, and he was optimal on FanDuel even in a loss.
I don't think that we have to talk too much about how that is a garbage scoring system that does not reward logic or reason whatsoever. Good luck if that's the path you're taking. I hate it so much. I try to
use it to my advantage.
Oh, yeah. Oh, for sure. Pay attention to that kind of stuff. Like you do want to be thinking about it. I hate the logistics of that. It's really, really not smart at all.
Yeah, look, it's one of those things that it makes FanDuel's game unique. I haven't found myself playing a ton on FanDuel recently. I just haven't. I've been playing primarily just on DraftKings and Monkey Knife Fight. I do have a couple of single bullets over on FanDuel today, but for the most case, it's because sometimes there's times I look at FanDuel, I look at the pricing and I'm like, God, you guys start living in that under $14 range. And I'm just like, oh God, I do not want to live in that range.
It's not as fun of a product. Look, I've played NBA almost exclusively on FanDuel this season. I am only playing DraftKings for MMA today. That should speak volumes.
I don't blame you. I think today's the first day I think today's the first time I've played MMA on FanDuel in probably about a month and a half.
This is probably the last pay-per-view.
Look, it's, part of it is, the prize pools. I'm just being honest. I'm just being honest, They don't
have the same pool. That's for sure.
Yeah. How much salary on the table should I leave in order to be different for today? Someone asked me this question on Twitter earlier, saying that they were finding themselves leaving 1,000 to 3,000 on the table over on DraftKings. 3,000 to me is too much, but I will tell you, when I was building single entries, I was leaving anywhere from 1.5 to 2,000 on the table.
Yeah. I mean, to me, that's not crazy. I actually haven't looked to see, I didn't even add like total salary to my sheet to even look at it, but I could do that as we talk right now to see like what my high and my low is. I wasn't really concerned with it. You're just going to build and it is what it is. By the way, I do want to do this. I got to work at least a little bit of my magic for being on this show.
Oh, I already know where you're going.
I see 533 viewers in here right now, 107 likes. To me, that ratio is preposterously low. If you're listening to this and you've been here for a while, I can see the chart on the screen. I know how long people have been here. Please hit that like button. It helps us out a ton. It certainly helps our ego to know that the thumbs up just gets hit. So click that thumbs up. It takes very little effort and you're here already. It's pretty easy. You don't have to do anything else. Just one click and you're done. Subscribe to the channel as well, because that helps us grow. More subscribers we have, the more that we can have shows. We could add more MMA content in the future. Who wouldn't want that? So likes, subscribes, notification bell, all that good stuff.
Yeah, be sure to follow us on social media, as we're always putting out everything that's going on, articles on the site. So be sure to follow us at Awesemo_com. Also be sure to like our page over on Facebook as well. Get in some other questions. We got about 5 or so minutes left here in the show. If you do have any questions, start lining those up to get us in there now. Of course, I know I will be over in Slack tonight during the fights. Morgan says, who scores more to win, Jacare or Burgos?
Probably Burgos.
I would see. Yeah, I'd probably lean Burgos in that one.
It's very possible that Jacare just wins like a super boring decision.
Yeah. Samuel in the super chat, appreciate you. Which underdogs will dominate tonight? Who will be considered a live dog tonight? In terms of underdogs and live dogs, I would put Edson Barboza in that, Mike Grundy, because he is an underdog in some of the books. We always talk about that, especially with Odds Shopper. You guys shop those odds, to find the best line that you're looking for. In terms of other ones that I would look at in terms of Kevin Aguilar, which to me would be another live dog.
To me, it's Barboza. Find the best line that you can have. I think he is the livest of dogs, if that's a word. And honestly, I don't know if it's just my look. I want to preface this by saying I do not like Tony Ferguson. I am cheering against him tonight. I've never cheered for him in a single fight in my entire life. He's still live in this one, but this is the swing fight. To me, he's still live. I don't know if he's ever live again after this, but he's live today.
The one thing I will say about MMA betting is live bet. Live bet. It is where you can really, especially when you think someone's gas tank is going to go at some point, you can find yourself into an excellent line live betting. I will tell you, I don't live in a state currently where I can bet, but our governor here is pushing that forward with the Seminole Tribe. So probably about the next month, it will be here in Florida of betting, from your couch. So, but one of the things I do is I follow the DraftKings Sportsbook live betting to see where it's going. And there are times I sit there and go, oh man, there is a solid number sitting there.
Can we talk a little bit about the fact that you cannot live bet or bet in Florida? Of all the things that you're not allowed to do in Florida, I mean, it's go somewhere without a mask and find all the pills that you can find, but you cannot bet on the Buccaneers to win a game. I mean, you can't regardless, but you can't bet on the Buccaneers to win a football game. Like, you can do literally everything else in the world in Florida except for bet on sports. Craziness.
3 weeks ago, the state cut a deal with the Seminole Tribe that will ultimately bring. Now it has to get passed through the legislator, but it's a $500 million a year deal. And then the tribe will then outsource the online gaming aspect of it to, and I know the three sports books that were mentioned were DraftKings, FanDuel, and Barstool.
Okay.
So it's coming. I mean, it's just,
it's all politics. It's all politics. That's all it is.
Look, I think I don't know how long it's going to take, but I think no matter where you are in the United States, that you're going to be able to sit on your couch and legally bet on sports.
I'm waiting to do two separate things. I live in a terrible place. North Carolina does not allow me to bet on anything. So at some point in time in the near future, it's going to be a great day. I am going to sit down with some legal greenery and place a legal bet at the same time, like it's not 1920. But unfortunately, right now, the only thing that they want me to have in North Carolina is no gambling and cigarettes only, because this is the tobacco state.
Yeah, it's it has changed. It's, and I tell people that all the time. Someone asked about DK Captain. I'm not huge on playing the captain contest over on DraftKings, just because I always find it just being hard. I'm just going to pull up the salaries here in terms of captain.
I don't even know anything about it. Never something that I've looked at before. Although $25K to first. That's not the craziest.
But just to give you an idea, Anthony Shevchenko is the highest salary at captain, $14,700.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's not her. You'll definitely be different.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you want to take one of the guys in the main event, Oliveira, 12,300, Chandler, 7,800.
Michael Chandler at 7,800 in the captain spot there. I can't imagine what his ownership is going to be.
Yeah. Burgos and Grundy, or Souza and Pickett. It's a good one. Got some TRD over in our Slack channel. I feel like Souza Pickett is a safer, but Burgos Grundy is a higher ceiling.
I have a bigger amount of the Pickett Souza combination, but I'm flat on Grundy Burgos, whereas Pickett is carrying the other combination. I'm just generally nervous about the Jacare Muniz fight.
Yeah, it has. I mean, you're talking about two jiu-jitsu guys. Muniz is going to want to get the fight to the ground. And Jacare at 41 years old, the question is how much is left in the tank? It's a legitimate question to ask. It's just like Tony Ferguson at 37 years old at 155 pounds. How much is left in the tank?
Yeah. And look, Jacare has been in some true ridiculous fights. I don't think that he'll care at all if Muniz wants that fight to go to the ground. Like, to me, that just becomes I don't want to say that it becomes a boring fight, because I definitely want to watch those two guys grapple. However, it becomes a very boring fight, I would imagine, from a DFS perspective.
Yeah, it's just one of those fights I just keep going back and forth on. But that is going to do it for us. Of course, Lock here is coming up here in 35 minutes. MLB Live Before Lock is next. So keep it locked here at Awesemo.com. Any parting shots here, Josh, before we get out of here?
No, good luck, everybody. Thank you for running those likes up. If you could push that number north of 200, that'd be great. It'd be a really nice milestone to leave on. Have some fun. I'll be poking my head into Slack. I got a buddy coming over. We're going to grill some meat. We're going to watch some UFC. We're just going to have some fun. So good luck, everybody.
So what are we grilling tonight? Because I'm grilling ribeyes tonight. So I got what's on the grill tonight?
I got a sirloin flap in the sous vide right now. Then it's going to go out to the grill. I'm going to char that bad boy up. And then I don't know what we're going to do for a sauce right now. I'm thinking maybe, you know what? I don't really know where I'm going to go yet. But the meat will be good. Roasted Brussels sprouts with hot honey, though. That will be the side.
Sounds good. But, of course, good luck to everyone tonight. Of course, I'll be in Slack throughout the fight. So good luck to everyone tonight. Coming up next, MLB Live Before Lock. See you later.